even though it's been taking forever for it to kind of process after. But anyways, good morning. All of a sudden my nose is so runny. It's COVID. No, it's allergies, I know it. That's okay. So, maybe it's not. Good thing I'm at home. Okay, so test next day, right? So today, test number 1 on Thursday. Eek. Okay. I've posted 3 versions of the practice test. They're the same, but you get different numbers. So you can kind of work through them. What I might do for one of the versions, maybe version 3, is I might just set it so that the questions are in a different order, because that's what I want to do for the actual test. So I've posted 3 versions of the practice test on Webassign. I will make version 3. Oops, that doesn't look like a 3. Version 3 have the questions in a different order. Have the questions in a different order. Just to make it more challenging, right? To make it more challenging, or I'll say a bit more challenging. It's the same question, so it's not really that hard, but a bit more challenging and to prepare you for the test. And that's just something I just thought of, so if you've already done version 3, I'm sorry, but I can put another one up if we need to. Okay. So what I want you to do is, you do not have to do all of these practice problems. You don't have to do anything except, if you want, I can, if you do a practice test, because I think in my email I said I'll use one of the practice tests as an assignment mark, but I've decided to, if you want to, if you've done a practice test, I'll use it instead of one of your lower assignment marks. So I'll replace your lowest assignment mark with 100% if you do a practice test. So if you do one practice test, right, or I'll say at least one, I will replace your lowest assignment mark with 100%. So kind of like a automatic 100% on the practice test, and then I use it to replace your lowest assignment mark. So that's just to encourage you to do this. You do not need to do a practice test. Okay, you don't need to do it. If you feel comfortable and you don't want to spend the time, then that's totally fine. You do not need to do a practice test. But it's definitely a good idea, just so you know what to expect. If you've had a look at the practice test, it's quite long, right? the test itself will only be slightly shorter, so maybe 2 or 3 questions shorter, not a lot shorter. Okay? So the test will only be about 2 or 3 questions, because some of those I put on there so you'd have practice of a couple of things. The test will only be about 2 or 3 questions shorter than the practice test. Okay, so you'll need to really have a good pace moving through these questions. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is that they're all worth the same amount of marks, right? So if you're finding that one question is taking you, 10 minutes, that's too long. So you'll need to work through them faster, and because they're all worth the same, then just focus your time elsewhere, right? Focus your time on things that you're able to do in the amount of time that you have. Okay. And the reason I'm making it a little bit harder or definitely harder than I would for an in-class test, is because you have all these resources available to you, right? So you're able to look at your notes, you have Desmos, you have your calculator, whatever calculator you want, you have cheat sheets. So you have all these resources that you can use. And so that's why I'm making it a little bit harder to even it out. Okay. Okay. The test is open book. Okay. And so you can use any resources that you have. Use all your resources, whether that's your notes or our notes, your practice tests that you've done already, right? Those would be really good resources. Google, use the internet, use everything that you can, right? So use all your resources. Do not work together. That's your only rule. This is the only thing not allowed. Thing that is not allowed. Everything else is allowed and you're good to go. As long as you're not working together, then that's good. Okay. I know it seems weird, so how am I supposed to know if you've worked together? It's actually very obvious when people have kind of worked together on a problem. So, and I know that sounds strange, but if I do find something like that, I will follow up on it, obviously. So just don't do it. Okay. All right. What are some other things? So during the test, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be here in Zoom, okay? And if you do have a question, then you can either ask it, just like you would in a normal classroom, but just remember that everyone else can hear you, or you can send it to me in the chat, either privately or publicly, it doesn't matter, if you don't wanna disturb everyone with your voice. So I'll be here in Zoom. If you have any questions, you do not need to be here in Zoom, okay? It's completely optional. It's just if you have a question in the test. So I will be available in Zoom during the test for questions. You know, normal test questions, I can't help you answer a question, of course, but, you know, am I supposed to do this question like this or like this? That's fine. So the test will be in Webassign. So it'll be just like the practice test, and we're just going to use Webassign. because that way I can make sure that everyone has different numbers and I'm not generating all these different numbers. So, so it's the easiest thing is to use Webassign. So let me just finish writing this little note, and then I'll make a note of that here as well. So I'll be available in Zoom during the test for questions. You can ask questions in the chat publicly or to me privately, or using your microphone, right? But just be aware that everyone else can hear you who's in the Zoom room. Okay, so the test will be in Webassign. Very similar to the practice test. And very similar to the practice test. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to have a look at your grades in the Webassign. So for now, all your grades from this test will just be your Webassign grade. Okay. Sometimes I know that that can not be a very good grade. So what I want you to do is I want you to submit your work to me when you're done. So when you finish your test, how about we just outline the procedure for the test? The test will be available at 10 o'clock, because that's when we start, right? 10? At 10 o'clock on Thursday. So the test will become available on Webassign at 10 o'clock on Thursday. Okay. You're gonna do the test, okay? And as you're doing the test, all work that you do, you're gonna do on paper or a tablet is fine too. But I don't want to assume that you have a tablet. I don't want to assume that you have a printer. I don't want to assume any of those things. Speaking of which, my printer is acting up. It's weird. So as you're doing these problems, you're going to do all your and show all your work, and you're clearly going to label, okay, here's question 1, here's question 2, okay? So do all your work on paper or a tablet, if you prefer. That's fine. Here, I'll just, I always forget to change it to mute everyone as they come in. That's okay. Totally fine. So do all your work on paper or a tablet. Okay. And then when you're finished, well, I'll say, and clearly label each question, right? Here's question number 1, here's question number 2, that sort of thing. 3, the Webassign test will close at 11:50. So you have our entire class time. Okay. The Webassign test will close at 11:50. Okay. Whatever you have, it'll just close at 11:50 if you're not done. So make sure everything's submitted by then. So, it'll close at 11:50. Then what I want you to do is, even if you have a class, you should be able to get this done before, kind of within a reasonable amount of time. So then, once you are finished the test, scan your work, okay? And there are a lot of free scanners available for your phone, so just scanning apps. You can search for scanning apps. Some of the ones that that I've seen people use. So there are many free scanning apps. If you have an iPhone, Scannable is really good. Scannable for iPhone. I'm pretty sure it's only iPhone. I don't know. I'm an iPhone junkie, so I use Scannable. It's really good. There's also Cam Scanner. Someone was mentioning Genius Scan. I haven't tried Genius Scan, but those are just some of the ones. And what I did when I was trying them out is I just downloaded a bunch and then tried them just to see, you know, which one I liked the best. And I liked Scannable, and then I just deleted the other ones. So just make sure that before the test starts, you know how to scan a document. Okay. Save your work as a single PDF. So just one file. I don't want to see tons of pictures. No, you can do better, right? Just one file. And if you use a scanning app like one of these, then it'll just do that for you. You just tell it you want it to be a PDF, and it'll just compile it, and then you, I airdrop it to myself, but you can email it to yourself, and then you can email it to me. Okay, so you save your work as a single PDF, and then email your PDF to me, which is eli@okanagan.bc.ca. Okay. By, we went to 11:50, by 12:30, let's say, by 12:30 on Thursday. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I wanna have your work, I wanna see all your work. I'll go through it, and I'll go through your grades and just kind of make sure that everything looks like what I would be marking you as. And then, but if I have your work, then I can look through it and just kind of make sure that everything looks good. Okay. So, good. So make sure you do a test run and make sure that you know how to scan a document, because you don't want to leave it and have this deadline. Right? Okay, so if you have any questions, you can ask them, or you can put them in the chat. That's fine too. Okay. All right. So what I want to do is I'll just go to Webassign and show you guys what it looks like if you haven't been there. I know it took me far too long to make the practice test. I'd say it probably took me about 2 days to make this practice test. So it is beautiful, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But man, oh man, it took forever. Webassign. Oops. Let's see if I can log in from here. So if we go to student view, it's much nicer. Here we are. Oh, and just a heads up, I think I mentioned it in my email, but I can't remember. I posted the homework. I don't know why I forgot to do that. Sorry. For 1.8, 1.10, and 1.11. 1.11 is just really small. But 1.8, 1.10, even though they're due on Monday at midnight, so I gave you a week to do them, it's a really good idea to just kind of have a look at some of these before the test, right? Because it is on the tested material. So there's a practice test version 1, 2, and 3. And so if you go to version 1, you can check out all of these, but you'll see that they're all the same. They'll just have different numbers. So some of these, right, wherever there's red, those values will change and nothing else will change. Okay. So the second question, of course, nothing's going to change, but that's okay. For a lot of these, you'll all have different numbers and different problems to work through. Right? So, but the general layout of all these questions will be the same. So how I set it to behave is you'll have, I think, 10 submissions. Wrote it down somewhere. And then after your first submission, it'll tell you if it's correct or incorrect. And of course, if it's correct, you don't need the solutions or the help you section. But if it's incorrect, then you get another submission. After the second submission, it'll offer you the solutions and give you all the options. So, so you can use that to study. Right? All right, so I feel like there was another thing. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Let me do that right now. Version 3. Edit settings. I'll make the question order random for version 3, just like I said in the notes there. And then I always forget to save, so I better hit save. Okay, so version 3 now does what I said it would do here. So question 3 has the questions in a different order, just to make it a little bit more challenging for you, right? And I think that's how I want to do it for the test. I haven't decided what's going to be kind of easier, so just be prepared. Maybe try version 3 if you're feeling good about version 1. Try version 3 and make sure that it's all good. So, there are a few questions that I want to go through with you guys together, just so we're on the same page. Let's see here. I haven't seen any questions come in, so that's good. Okay, but let me know if you have any questions. So from practice test number 1, where is one that I wanted to do? I'll use version 1. for it to load. Okay. And so you've got the distance, for example, is a little warm-up question. And then some of those commutative, distributive properties, just terminology. And then we get into just plain math, right? So here you're going to write the expression without parentheses. So far, I would say all of these are pretty basic. Let's go to, where was the one that I did with the other class? Because it was pretty challenging. So question 12 has two parts, right? And so these have the same format, and you're going to use the rules of exponents, and you're going to be able to kind of simplify things. So what I want to do is I want to do a version of 12b. And what I'll make a note of, some values vary for each individual, right? So some of these are going to be different for you, but the idea stays the same, right? And so for mine that I've got kind of here on the side, 16s to the 5 t to the 4 all over s to the 4 t to the 9 over 2, and then all to the power of -1/2. So some of these values will be different for you, but the idea of how to solve this thing is going to be the same. That's an S. So there are a lot of different ways that we could solve this. For me, because this -1/2 is the exponent on all of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify everything inside here, and then my last step is going to be to bring in this -1/2. So what I have is I have 16s to the 5 t to the 4 over s to the 4 t to the 9 over 2 all to the -1/2. Just rewriting the question. Using the rules of exponents, if I want to bring everything from the denominator upstairs to the numerator, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write them with a negative exponent. So this becomes 16s to the 5 t to the 4 times s to the -4 times t to the -9 over 2, all to the -1/2. Okay. So what I'm going to do still is I'm going to simplify inside here. And so I've got the same base of s to the 5 and s to the -4. And then I've got t to the 4 and t to the -9 over 2. There's a policeman at my door. Just give me a second here. Resume recording. Little intermission there. Hopefully you got time to work through that. The police came. Basically to tell us that they're sorry the alleyway is so mucky. But anyways, had to talk to them. All right, so where were we? We're consolidating here. Hopefully you've had time to kind of work on this while I was away. So we've got 16s to the 5 times s to the -4, and I'll show all my steps, but if you went straight to the next step of s to the 5 minus 4, that's totally fine. T to the 4, t to the -9 over 2, oops. All to the -1/2. So now I get 16s to the 5 plus -4, right? Just keeping track that we've got this plus negative, right? Technically t to the 4 plus -9/2. Oops, there. The 9/2 should probably be in brackets, and then all to the -1/2. This puts me at 16 s to the 5 plus -4 is of course just 1, but I drew it, but it didn't catch, but that's okay because s to the 1 we usually just write as s. And then we've got t to the 4 minus 9/2 all to the -1/2. So now notice you have to be really careful, right? Because we've got essentially a fraction minus a fraction. So we need a common denominator here. So we're going to rewrite this 4 as 8/2, right? 8/2 minus 9/2. So this becomes 16st to the 4 times 2/2, right? Just showing how I'm getting there. Oops. Minus 9/2 to the -1/2. Guess I don't need to be spacing them out so much. Take pages and pages of work. So this becomes 16st to the 8 minus 9, right? Because I've got that common denominator, so I've got 8 minus 9, -1/2, all to the -1/2. Okay. Because I've got this -1/2 on the outside, and I'm multiplying all the way through, as long as I'm only multiplying or dividing in here, I'm allowed to expand this power inside, right? Just because of the exponent laws. And so now I've got 16 to the -1/2, s to the -1/2, and then t to the -1/2 times -1/2. So 16 to the -1/2 is really 1 over the square root of 16. Same thing with s to the -1/2 is really 1 over the square root of s. If I'm multiplying these fractions, right, a -1/2 times a -1/2, negative times a negative makes a positive, and a half times a half makes a quarter, which is really just the 4th root. So this becomes the square root of 16 times the square root of s, and t to the 1/4. I'm keeping these separate. I could combine them because they have the same power, but because I know the square root of 16 is 4, I'm going to keep them separate to make it clear that I can rewrite this as the 4th root of t over 4 root s. And then I'm done. Okay. What's another one that we should do? So you probably haven't had a chance to really go through any of these yet. But there was one that I wanted to go through with you guys. And it is this compound fraction one. So it's a version of 26. Okay. So a version of 26. It's a compound fraction. And just so I have it in front of me, let's use the numbers that I had. And that was x minus 8 divided by x minus 13 minus x plus 7 over x plus 2 all over x plus 8. See what happens. Okay, so a couple of things that I need to keep an eye out for, right? Especially because I need to have a common denominator before I can go ahead and combine these things, and then I'll just have a fraction over a fraction, essentially x plus 8 I can rewrite as x plus 8 over 1, right? And so there are a couple of things I need to do, but they should be fairly obvious. I need a common denominator, and then I'm able to combine this into one fraction. And then I'm just dividing fractions. So now I've got x minus 8 over x minus 13 times x plus 2 times x plus 2. Right, by now you should be very familiar with the trick of, okay, I'm just going to use this times this as my common denominator. So I need to multiply by x plus 2 over x plus 2. And then I need to subtract x plus 7 divided by x plus 2, and then times x minus 13 times x, or over x minus 13. I'll put little brackets around these guys just to make sure that I keep track. Oh, those ones I had. Keep track of these things as one thing. And then, of course, it's all over x plus 8. I'm going to write it over 1 just to highlight that, or maybe not yet. Maybe I'll hold off on that over 1 until I'm ready to flip and multiply. So what I've got is I've got x minus 8 times x plus 2 minus x plus 7 times x minus 13 all over x minus 13 times x plus 2. So this becomes x minus 8 times x plus 2 minus x plus 7 times x minus 13 all over x minus 13 times x plus 2, all divided by x plus 8 over 1. All right, now I'm just highlighting that I've got a fraction over a fraction. So now to simplify this, I need to flip the denominator and multiply. So this becomes, I'll give myself a little bit more space, x minus 8 times x plus 2 minus x plus 7 times x minus 13 over x minus 13 times x plus 2 times, flip and multiply 1 over x plus 8. So I'm looking at this here. This becomes x minus 8 times x plus 2 minus x plus 7 times x minus 13, all divided by, because I'm multiplying all the way across here, I can put these all together. So I get all divided by x minus 13 times x plus 2 times x plus 8. Okay. It's really just finding that common denominator, and then after that, just rules of fractions. So now what I'm going to do is, because I don't see anything that, I don't have a common or a common factor up top here, so there's nothing that I can cancel with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to expand out the numerator and see if I can simplify it a little bit. This looks pretty well factored to me. So let's expand that numerator and see where we get to. X squared plus 2x minus 8x minus 16. Oops. minus, and that negative is all on the outside, x squared minus 13x plus 7x, and then 7 times 13 is 91, so minus 91. Okay. So now it's over x minus 13 times x plus 2 times x plus 8. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this negative inside the brackets, right? First, I'm going to rewrite this a little bit simplified, but at the same time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this negative inside. So I've got x squared plus, and then 2x minus 8x puts me at negative 6x minus 16 minus x squared, and then use your calculator. I've got negative 13 plus 7, but then it's negative 6, but then the negative of that is plus 6x plus 91. All over x minus 13 times x plus 2 times x plus 8. But now I can see that I can cancel some of this stuff. X squared minus x squared goes to 0. Negative 6x plus 6x goes to 0. And then I've got negative 16 plus 91 is 75. So I get 75 is all that's left over x minus 13 times x plus 2 times x plus 8. Good. And then you're done. That's another one I wanted to do. Can't see any others that I wanted to do specifically. Do you guys have any that you want to work through? So what I would do, because this is factored, I would just leave it like this. And in fact, it's what the solution wants. So because if you expand this out, nothing's going to cancel. It's just going to get bigger because, right, just like we had this, but because we have this minus here, or if we're adding, but usually we're subtracting, right? Because we have this plus minus, we had the opportunity to simplify it a little bit. But because here we're just multiplying, we would expand this whole thing out, and it wouldn't simplify anything. It would still be right, but I would leave it factored like this. Okay. Okay. So, what was another? I thought there was another one I wanted to do, but now they're all looking pretty good. Anyways, what we can do is I'll stay on the line here, but I'm going to stop the recording because I don't have any more that I wanted to work through with you guys. But if you want, you can take this time to work through the practice test, and I'll just be here if you have any questions. So, because I'm not seeing any requests. So, but it might be too soon because you haven't gone through it. So that's what we'll do. We'll stop the recording, and then if you want to, you can work through the practice test. If you don't want to do that right now, that's fine. You can always ask me questions later. But yeah, sound good? I'll stop the recording. Done.